Hello, welcome back to Math Time with Professor Prime, and I'm your host as always, Professor Prime. Let's talk about math and tennis. We'll talk about the basics, we'll talk about how math is involved, and we'll go from there. So, when it comes to tennis, the basic idea is you have a racket, you hit a ball over a net across a court. And the idea is you go back and forth with an opponent or opponents until either they can no longer play it back to you or you can no longer play it to them, which, can happen if someone's out of bounds or the ball hits the ground, whatever the case may be. Um, but the idea is you gain points based on how those interactions go. And you might be in different places where they have different rules, different regulations, but that's the gist of it. And just on that basic surface level of what it is, there's math in it. And then we can just kind of go from there. So there's math in the game, the fact that it's a game where you're scoring points to win, um, you know, just on that basic level. That's math. It doesn't seem glamorous to some, but it is what it is. But it goes further than that. It goes way further than that, right? Because see, here's the thing. Not only is there math and scoring points, just that general part, but there's math in the ball, there's math in the racket, there's math in the net, in the court, in the motions that you take, and we're gonna elaborate on those things a little bit. And because I don't want this to get too long, but here's the thing, right? There's math in your equipment, right? There's math in the racket, how it's been constructed, what it's been constructed with, and what it's doing, right? Because the general idea is like with the racket, you have your neck, your grip, your frame, and what that frame contains, right? Which is typically a tightly wound network of strings. And there's math in all of that. And I think that's cool. Again, like in how it's constructed and what it's constructed with and what it's supposed to be doing. And there's like rules and regulations for like the different sizes and weights of things and the different materials used. So that's one thing, right? And then you could extend this to the ball, right? There's math in the ball and its shape, what it's made of, what it's covered in, right? Um, and then we can extend this idea to the court, right? You have this court divided in two, and you have a net. There's math in the court in the dimensions of that court. There's also the same, sorry, the same could be said for the net and what it's composed of, and its dimensions. And then furthermore, right, there's a lot of motion going on in tennis, and there's a lot that you as a player would have to be following, whether you're conscious of it or not, right? And a lot of split second sort of decisions. So there's math in all the motions involved, and there's so many motions. That's what I was getting at. But let's talk about that a little further, right? Because like, right, there's motion in you having your racket and hitting that ball, and then as you're hitting that ball, so many things are happening, right? Because like while you're focusing on that, you're moving across the court. And if it's just one on one, your opponent's doing the same, and you are keeping track of yourself, your opponent, the court, the net, the ball, and the back and forth. And you're moving at different speeds, hitting that ball at different angles, and being in different positions while all that is happening, and all that is math. And if you are dealing with a doubles match, right? It's like you have your team, you and your partner, and then you have your opposing team, and so you're keeping track of you're keeping track of your partner, you're keeping track of both of your opponents and where the ball is at any given moment. And there's a lot of motion going on, a lot of shift in position, a lot of speed going on, a lot of different angles that you're hitting things out, and you're just keeping track of it, and all is happening really quickly. And if you're watching it, you're watching all things play out. And then furthermore, if you're the player, there's math that not only goes into that given match and going back and forth with your opponent, but there's math in the training, right? Exercises that you're doing, the food that you eat, and what that food does for you, right? You have to be fueled, and you're also going to be, watching what goes into your body so you can optimize things. So there's math not only in the game, in the scoring, but also in the equipment, just the basic equipment like the racket and the ball, but also if you are wearing different clothes, different shoes, and stuff like that, and how all of that equipment is constructed and what it's been constructed with and what it's supposed to do. But there's also math in the court, math in the net, the dimensions of all those things that I mentioned, and what that net and what that court is made of, and maintaining it all. There's a lot of money that's going into doing all of that. There's math in that money, right? There's math in the funding, math in, you know, advertising, and if you are sponsored, there's math in that too. And so there's just so much that goes in, whether we're talking about just the game itself, whether we're talking about the rules, the regulations, playing, scoring, going back and forth, um, the training, funding, all that, right? There's math across the board. And I feel like with everything that I mentioned, you can expand, right? You can go deeper at each level and find more examples of what I was saying. And please feel free to discuss them. But I wanted to get across just that on the basic level, there's math across the board. And, we may not always see it, we may not always write it down, but the math is there. Math is everywhere and everything. And I think sports is a great way to show people. And these players are doing their thing and doing that thing. They're accruing stats, right? And there's so much you could say about that too. So whether you're watching tennis or you're playing tennis or you're coaching, there's math across the board, and I think that's cool. And there's no shortage of topics that you can talk about with even in with just within math and tennis. So yeah, I encourage you to discuss them. And if you made it through, thank you for watching. I hope this has shifted your perspective if it wasn't already where I was hoping it would be. Either way, I hope you learned something or just thought about things differently. I'll see you in the future. Professor Prime out.